Hello and welcome to this week's episode of SBC Podcast. We have with us today award-winning Patrick Leask, who is a certified business coach with ActionCOACH. Patrick's areas of expertise include business systemization, marketing, sales, and team building, leveraging his MBA and over 30 years of experience. Today, we will discuss some aspects of strategy and business systemization and possibly other related topics that may spring from the conversation. Welcome to the show, Patrick.
Thanks, Rashid. It's great to be here.
Awesome. So, Patrick, can you tell our listeners a little bit about ActionCOACH?
Sure. So ActionCOACH was founded in 1993 by Brad Sugars, an Australian entrepreneur. And Brad was a CPA, and he advised his clients on tax and other CPA activities, basically their finances. But he found that with his business savvy, he was able to advise them on other things around business, such as how to build a team, how to market and sell more effectively, how to systemize their business. And he found that they had a real hunger for that because they didn't get that anywhere else. So he started building his business in Brisbane, Australia, and had grand visions, and has taken that business in Australia to a global business with over 900 coaches in 54 countries all over the world today.
Wow, that's awesome. And how did you get involved?
Well, I worked for other people for about 30 years, and at one stage in my career, about 7 years ago, I kind of took a stock of my situation and felt like I needed to get on a little steeper learning curve, and what I enjoyed doing was bringing professionals into my department and see them grow. So the steep learning curve was, well, Patrick, start your own business. And what might that be? Well, you enjoy mentoring young professionals, so how about business coaching? So that brought me into business coaching and landed a franchise spot on the world's largest business coaching team, ActionCOACH.
Yeah, awesome. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
So while you and I were having a conversation earlier, and obviously with our previous interactions, and I know you like to structure things and you like to organize things, and then with your process, you have what you call 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 V's.
Exactly.
Can you go over those?
Yeah. So it's all about having structure. Business. We tend to think business is quite complicated, but it's not really that complicated if we just boil it down to kind of simple principles. And so I've got 5 V's that I feel that are good structure to business and give a business owner some ideas on the important things in business. And the first V, I'll just go over just quickly what those are. The first V is vision. So the most important thing is to have a purpose and a why as to why we're in business. That might be to give back to the community. It might be providing a valued service to a certain sector in the industry. It might be providing financial freedom or independence.
Right.
There are a lot of reasons why we get into business, but we need to be clear on that and really strong on our why and drive towards that. I think Yogi Berra said if we don't know where we're going, we probably won't get there.
Right.
And so it's important to have a vision of where we're going, have that clarity.
Right.
So it starts with that. Mm-hmm. But beyond that, then once we determine kind of our long-term vision, it's the value. When in business, we win by providing value to our customers, and we win vis-a-vis the competition when we add more value than they do. So it's all about providing value to our customers, and particularly that niche that we're looking to serve. Mm-hmm. And that's so important that I have another V around that, and it's called voice. So not only should our value proposition be very strong and inherent in what the product and service stands for, but it needs to resonate with our target market. So the voice of the customer is extremely important. Beyond that, it's all about making things happen. So if we have a great value proposition, a great product and service, all other things being equal, if we can be more responsive and quicker, so it's velocity is the fourth V. If we can do things faster, time is money. If we can do things faster and be responsive to our market, deliver in a shorter time frame than our competition, we're going to win. And the last one's visibility. It's very important to be able to see what's going on in the business. So as a business owner, we're not confused as to what's going on. We're not walking around in a fog. Everything's clear, and we have good measures of where we are in the business. And it's actually that visibility that gives us some short-term clarity on that path to that long-term vision. So it comes right back to the first V, vision. Mm-hmm. So those are the 5 V's in business.
No, that's awesome. I love it. So it's like a circle here, touching on all the very important and sensitive areas, and making sure you have a destination. Before you set sail, you know where you're going.
Well, right, exactly. So it's a circle or a process, and any good process is closed loop. Mm-hmm. So it's a closed loop. It comes back onto itself, and it's continuous improvement that's the key to make it all work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. And Patrick, what are some ways or some suggestions that people can zero in on the value, how they can provide more value, or how they can mine out some different ways to kind of
Yeah.
differentiate themselves, as you were
Well,
alluding to with the value.
the first is to not be too focused on product. We tend to think that if we have the best product that we're going to win in the marketplace. Build the best mousetrap and the world will beat a path to your door. Not necessarily. So it's all about resonating with that key need of your marketplace. So one acronym I use is WIIFM. Dial into WIIFM,
Right,
the radio station. That's
Right.
what's in it for me.
Right.
So if you've got a great proposition, it's got to resonate with your target market.
Mhm.
That's a key.
And you mentioned the voice, and I like that you call it the voice of the customer, because I think people sometimes fall in love with their business and then they forget,
Yeah.
what matters in that situation, because without the customer or without the value, then you have no business. So what are some other ways too with the as far as like really being attentive and listening to the customer? What are some ways
Well,
people
so a
can
lot of
get
it's just getting continuous feedback. Asking for feedback, following up with your customer after they experience the service that you provide. Jeff Bezos at Amazon has an empty chair policy, which
Right.
he holds a meeting and there's an empty chair, and that's just to signify that in every meeting we should be cognizant of the customer
Right.
that is there in our
Right.
world, and
Yes.
it's really their voice that's key. So it's all about customer. I worked for many years in marketing in a technology-based company, manufacturing company,
Right.
and the technologists and the engineers wanted to speak about product and technology. And my point was always, well, what's the customer think? So rather than having a product or technology looking for a market, start with your customer.
Yeah.
Start with their voice, and be consistent in terms of your delivery to that need.
Yeah, I totally agree. If you
Yeah.
find their pain points, and then it's an easier sell, because everybody's looking for solutions. But if you can start from that, obviously you can't go wrong. You still have to do all the other V's that we're talking about.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Because obviously execution is key.
Right.
So I think once you gather the information, you know where you're going and all of that. Then obviously without execution, it's all for
falls
naught.
apart. That's why we call ourselves ActionCOACH, right?
Right,
A plan
right. I
is
love it,
great,
yeah.
and delivery mechanisms and all these things, all the mechanisms of business that have to be in place. But it's all about taking action and making it happen.
Yeah, and I love that you also like include the factor of time and how time is sensitive and things like that. I know that's one of the things that's easily missed by business owners, because their projects, they will expand to fill the time given to them.
Exactly.
And if you
Yeah.
don't set timelines and deadlines, especially,
Yeah.
I think we all have a tendency.
Yeah, exactly. So I had a client a couple years ago that subcontracted a lot of the work. So she had some contractors that she paid on an hourly basis. So when they logged into the project and worked on the project, they would log their time, and that would be the basis for their pay.
Right.
So we talked about schedule, and over time, I was hearing things like, well, Patrick, it's no more cost to me if it takes 2 weeks versus 1 week. It's how many hours they log into the project. And that's direct cost. However, what we got to thinking about was looking at the clock on the wall and consider that not only a time clock, but a money clock. Your overhead costs continue to accrue every minute, every hour of the
Yes.
day. So every day, every hour is important, because you've got cost inherent in the business. The rent has to be paid, other fixed costs have to be covered. So time is money.
Yeah, no, exactly, and it doesn't stop. You can't
Yeah.
you can't get it back.
No, you can't get it back.
Not to mention the opportunity cost, of course.
Yeah.
Because if you're not rowing forward, you're being carried back by the
The current.
by the river or the
Yeah.
current, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I love the obviously the what gets measured gets done. So
Yeah.
the KPIs, or key performance indicators and metrics and things like that. I know not everybody has all these like fancy systems and things to
Yeah.
track things. What are some suggestions you usually give people to kind of simplify it and keep it simple, like the KISS principle?
Yeah, simple is very, very good. So one thing is measuring. So once we have a core strategy, keep it simple, focus on a particular target market and their needs, and do everything consistent with delivering quality to that. And then from there, it's that closed loop system, just measuring what we do. I often use the analogy of a car. going down a road to the journey, the destination of the business. And we can look in the rearview mirror with the historical data from the P&L, the balance sheet, the other reports our accountant might give us. But we got to look in the windshield. We got to look forward. So a big part of it is having some leading indicators that indicate where our business is going, and use that to kind of track and drive the car in the right direction.
Yeah, I love that, because we can all get caught up in the lagging indicators and then forget about the leading indicators. That will tell you what you need to do to.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think a lot of it, obviously, like most of the accounting is that way.
Exactly.
Most of the accounting is lagging indicators. So it's a great reminder, obviously, and I think it's a very worthwhile thing for business owners and entrepreneurs to be mindful of that. And I remember, Patrick, when you and I were both spoke to other business owners at one point, I think we intersected about the part where we talk a little bit about people and how you can, I guess, instill accountability, and how you can be more effective and efficient in how you get them onboarded and how you get started. And I specifically like that you had a form, I forgot what you call it, to where, because a lot of people, what they do is they bring somebody in, they throw them, at a desk, and then they leave him be, as opposed to actually continuing that conversation and the communication, and then actually checking in and to say, okay, are we on the same page? What are the expectations? Are we in the right direction? Can you speak a little bit towards that?
So when exactly, that's very, very important. A big challenge for a founder of a business or a solo entrepreneur is to grow that business, and the key to that is people and process. So getting the right people on board. So when we get people on board, we're hiring people, we tend to focus on a job description that describes the tasks or activities we want that person to do. And it might even be described on the sheet as responsibilities, right? But basically it's, what am I to do? The real question is, how am I to contribute? So I prefer and that's this form you were talking about, is around accountabilities. So, and I've run into that often. I'll be with a business owner and his team and ask, so tell me about how all the folks here in the room, how they participate in the business. What are their roles? What do they do? And I get great answers for that. Well, I do this, my function is this, I do this daily, and that's kind of my role. And then I ask, okay, so who in this room is accountable for leads? Who is accountable for average sale price per job? Who's accountable for product quality? And the accountability is a question that often goes unanswered, right? So that's something we need to keep. It's not just about doing things, it's about getting results in business. And so if we focus on our team, getting them lined out and taking ownership of the accountabilities, the results there to drive, then we're in a much better place than just having people doing things. We want them to get things done and achieve against their accountabilities.
With a purpose, right?
With a purpose, absolutely. It's all got to be aligned.
Yeah, and Patrick, can you think of any blind spots or pitfalls that you found with as you work with business owners that typically seem to be always rearing their heads or popping up for people?
Well, an early stage. So I often look at businesses from what stage in the life cycle are they at. So once a business starts up, often a technician in the business. The technician is someone, say a plumber that was an apprentice many years ago, 20 years experience as a plumber, one day wakes up and says to himself, I think I know more about plumbing business than my boss. I think I'll start my own plumbing business. And the technician, the plumber, starts his own plumbing business and realizes it's not just about the technical work. It's about all the other things that go into business. So probably the most important thing is to understand that there's learning. I have an MBA in finance, but my MBA didn't really teach me how to run a business. And at ActionCOACH, so that's what we do. We have a methodology to re-educate business owners on a systematic way to build a business. So it's all about having a system, but really being tuned into, I'm going to be more successful as a business leader. My business is going to be more successful if I learn, develop the skills, and become a stronger leader. So it's all about learning, knowledge, and skills of the leader. That's the key determinant of success.
An ongoing learning, a growth mentality as opposed to a fixed kind of mentality.
So
that you've figured it all out.
That apprentice plumber who became very skilled at plumbing becomes a business owner and stops learning. And just tries to do and struggles with some of the fundamental things in business because that knowledge isn't there.
Right,
Yeah,
right. And
yeah.
then they wonder why it's not working after a certain
Right.
point, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Patrick, is there anything that you would like to share with our audience that maybe we didn't get to cover in this conversation?
Well, we started off with systems, right?
Right.
And so one reason why that in some cases we're reluctant to embrace a system because we feel it's just easier to just kind of make it up as we go
Right.
and get a good feel for what works and just continue doing that.
Right. Right.
But over time, of course, that doesn't work because as we scale the business and we're adding responsibilities
Right.
and we've got flux of people coming in,
Yeah.
a system has to be documented.
Right.
So a lot of business owners develop a sort of system, a kind of way of doing things, but it's not documented and it's not robust and repeatable.
Right.
And we
scalable.
need that, and it's scalable, exactly. It needs to be all those things,
Right.
documented, repeatable, and scalable in order to really work for the business.
Yeah, I totally agree because I mean it's like if you've spent time, money, and effort, and sweat and blood,
Yeah.
and then you figured out the best way to do things, and you figured out what works and what doesn't. Why not stick with what works
Yeah.
best and teach that to everybody, as opposed to like flying by the seat of your pants, and then the next person that comes in flies by the seat of their pants.
Yeah, exactly.
That is the epitome of inefficiency.
Yeah.
And obviously, like you can't scale that way, and
Yeah.
most likely you'll go out of business if you
Yeah,
keep doing
exactly.
it that way.
So systems, process are important. People, we talked a minute ago. So one of the biggest challenges for a startup entrepreneur is to go from the founder mentality of vision, idea, passion, and it's all in my head, and I'm the expert, and I'm going
Right.
to make this work. It's my baby. I'm going to do it. Okay, fine, but the limit to growth there is the fact that that entrepreneur might only be willing to work 60, 70 hours a
Right,
week,
right.
because soon they'll realize that in order to scale, it's going to take people and process.
Right.
And just getting out of that mindset of I have to do it my way, or even as they hire people, is getting frustrated that they just don't quite get it.
Right.
They don't do it the way they want it done. My rule of thumb is basically if you have about an 80% confidence level that the delegation will
Right.
result in good work,
Yeah.
delegate it, right?
Right, right.
And 20% of the time you might have a learning experience, but that's great.
Yeah.
But you're going to scale a lot faster when you're able to delegate and feel comfortable with that. And
Right.
a lot of founders that don't get out of that founder mentality,
Right.
they struggle with delegation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to grow, you have to let go, right?
Exactly. To grow, you have to let go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely a lesson learned for myself and a lot of the business owners that that are growth minded that I've spoken to, and we all know how difficult it is to let go of those things, especially if you like things done a certain way.
Yeah.
But there are like really good results at the other on the other side if you're doing it properly and you're letting go.
Yeah.
Especially like if you implement what we talked about with the right process and procedure, it actually facilitates the onboarding, it facilitates the training, it gives people other reference points so they don't have to keep coming back to you as well, and then you can focus on maybe what you're greatest at, and
Right.
you build relationships and whatever
Yeah.
your strong suit is.
Exactly.
And then delegate the rest.
In the framework that we have for growth at ActionCOACH, we talk about building a foundation. And then once we go to solid foundation in a business model that's viable, then we go into growth mode. That's about sales and marketing, getting more opportunity. And then it's the balance swings to now how do we handle all that opportunity and fulfill the obligations through the operations. So the key there is leverage and
Right.
systems.
Right.
But systems should come before we put a lot of energy into getting on board that high performance work team. Because if we start getting some top talent and we don't have the underlying systems in place, they'll just get frustrated,
Right.
and leave quickly, saying
Right.
to themselves, well, gee, I can't work here. We just don't know what we're doing,
Right.
and it's just too chaotic.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we talk foundation, growth, leverage to put systems in place, and then build team, kind of in that sequence.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love it. I
Yeah.
mean, and we both know experience is very expensive and costly. To gain that experience by trial and error, if you survive it. So I don't remember who said it, but said like the School of Hard Knocks, the tuition is
very expensive.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So Patrick, we're going to share all your contact information.
Good.
But if you wanted to kind of share it verbally, like for sometimes people who are just listening and want to
Yeah.
take a note, but we will publish everything that Patrick shares as far as his contact on the show notes, and then also when we post this in all the places we post it, like on social media and our blog post. So Patrick, how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, first, my name's kind of unusual, so I have the luxury of if you Google my name, you basically get me. Not because I'm world famous, but
Right.
because I have an unusual name. So it's Patrick Leask, Leask,
Right.
a Scottish name. So you can reach me on my website at www.actioncoach.com/Patrick Leask, Leask, or LinkedIn at linkedin.com in Leask Patrick. And so I recommend you reach out those two ways. I got some great information on my website, including 24 articles on the 6 key areas of business that you really got to pay attention to. So check those two things out. I'd appreciate it.
Yes, definitely. That will be worth your time. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah.
I've referred to some of Patrick's materials myself. So, but anyways, Patrick, it has been a pleasure to have you on this podcast. Listeners, thanks for stopping by. This concludes today's episode of the SBC podcast. Be on the lookout for next week's episode, and feel free to listen to any previous episodes on iTunes or our blog links at sbchecks.com and the resources. Thank you.